So this, my friends, is the Gentemstick Mantaray 156. It's an amazing board. My favorite board in Gentem's line. The Gentemstick line has like a lot of amazing boards too, in a wide variety of shapes. But this one just seems to have the most mass appeal. This is this first version, or it seems like the first time that I've seen that Gentem has a second board in a line. Like they have the baby Mantaray, they have the Mantaray, and the giant Mantaray, but they're all different in personality. The baby Mantaray is close to the Mantaray. The giant Mantaray is soft and really mellow and just totally different than the Mantaray 54. Now they have a Mantaray 56. It's amazing. I liked it better than the 54, and it's literally my favorite. I would say the Stingray is pretty close, but most of us felt the same way. We like Grant loved the Stingray. There's no accounting for taste with that guy. No, just kidding. But the Grant loved the Stingray. He loved that the most. But myself and Mason, we felt like this was the better board. This was my favorite. And I just love that it's just not that far off the tail, yet it's very directional, very tapered, and still very set back. But in terms of, like with some of the boards, like, you know, you look at, like so many other boards in their line, they're so far off the tail. So it's really nice. But also just another warning, this board has traveled around the world, and so many people have ridden it, so it looks pretty beat up. This is not typical of how your board's gonna look if you've owned it for a season, like I'm looking at this board at the end of the season. We were lucky to get in some powder, some groomer, all that stuff. But this is the on the table review under the pretty lights and just kind of with some afterthoughts. Love the all black base. So easy to P-Tex and make better if you give it a boo-boo. And then, and you don't want to give it a boo-boo because it's an expensive board. But there's a little bit of camber underfoot that just, you know, kind of like mellows out here and goes into an early rise rocker, and you can kind of see that there. You know, you only have 5x2 per binding, which I'm not a huge fan of. I love the Yoder and I love those stance width options, the wider US focused stance. And since this is gonna be sold in the US a lot, I would have loved to have seen a similar stance width option, but it seems like Gentemstick is a little bit more like a ski company where they're very specific in where they want you to set your boot, you know, set the bindings on the ski. And, you know, a lot of the creators of skis get bummed when somebody, you know, sets it back too far or something like that. They're like, you're not riding the ski correctly. So maybe that's what Gentem has going here. But for me, I'd love a little wider stance options and maybe on a bigger board. But it is nice to see two Mantarays that are very similar. I haven't ridden the other Mantaray in like over a year or 2 years, but it just was one of the best boards in Gentem's line back then for me. Now this is, but they were so close from my memory. I just like it just felt bigger and better just for my specs. But you know, minimum stance width with a normal binding is just about 19 inches. And max stance with a normal disc binding is just about 22 and a quarter, between 22 and a quarter and 22 and a half. Now, if you want to set it all the way back, you're looking at just about 19 and 3/4. So, you know, at 19 and 3/4, you're looking at just about 24 and a half and just about 15 and a half. So you're looking at 9 inches back on board, which is really cool. It's not a shit ton. There are so many other boards that are super set back, but you know, even moving it forward a little bit and going with the normal, you know, going as wide as you can go, you're still getting pretty far back on board. You're getting some, you know, some nice directional float. even all the way out here, but then bringing it back in, you're pretty far back, and you're getting pretty surfy. It's like surfy and can slash, but it can still drive off the tail and carve super well. It's equally at home in groomers as it is in powder. Yeah, the Yoder's a little better in powder, and some other Gentem boards are, like the Barracuda I tried. You know, those are amazing powder boards. But if you're looking for a one board kind of snow surfy quiver, that kind of, it's like a very surfy freeride board and a little more free-ridey snow surfy board, if that makes sense to you. It reminds me of a performance shortboard. If you like to surf and you like to snap lips, get barreled, and make hard turns, really just hard cutbacks, this is the kind of board, and that's how I like to surf. You know, when I used to do that more than I snowboarded in the 90s, and yeah, in the 90s. And a tiny bit of the O's. But this is the kind of board you want to ride. So there you have it. You know, my only real hesitation to really make this like a super recommendable board is the price. You know, at $1,100, it's just really expensive. You can get almost 2 boards for that price. So I'll leave it to your discretion if you can swing it. If you can, it's hands down our favorite in the Gentem line. I wish it had the cool, you know, like wood top sheet style look to it, because it would make it look even more sexy. But I do love the simplicity of this board too. You know, just kind of like almost black, like a brownish black with a black base, and just, it's beautiful in its own right. But it's not going to get that attention like some of the Gentem boards would. But still, it's better to feel good on snow than to look good in the lift line for me. And if you're about just the ride I described, and you can swing this price-wise, this is a great call.